I think that people underestimate the power that movement has emotionally in your wellness overall. There's things that make you feel good that don't hurt as much as running. Running is hard. The cool thing about it is that when you get done with it, you're going to be happy that you did it.
Together through their strife.
Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Through Their Stride podcast. I'm your host, Sam Sutton, and today I am joined by Brian Vogt on this episode. Brian is a multi-time marathoner and 2-time Lubbock Marathon winner. He ran it in 2024 and won it, and then he won it again in 2025, just a couple of weeks after running the Chicago Marathon. Pretty interesting story there. Super interesting guy. He only recently took up marathoning, probably within the last decade, and really has improved his time. Started out in the 4:30s and got all the way down to now in the 2:50s, low 2:50s. So super interesting guy, super interesting story. Talks about how movement has been medicine for him, and mentally and physically. And after dealing with the loss of his mom, running was a big outlet for him. And so this has been a really interesting story. Really great guy. Appreciate him coming up on the podcast. Without further ado, let's get into it.
All right, welcome to episode 9 of Through Their Stride. I'm here today with Brian Vogt, who I think I saw just recently won the Lubbock Marathon. Is that correct? That is correct. So that was the second time I ran the Lubbock Marathon, and I won it last year too. So it was 2 in a row. Awesome. That's definitely interesting. Yeah, I did that one, the half marathon version of that way back in 2018. And what I remember about the course is it's very flat, out and back. Like you can see the turnaround almost the entire way. Is that how you kind of felt? That's kind of how it was last year. They had the USATF come through and certify it as a BQ this year. And so they changed the course from last year. So last year, I remember at some point, running through the tech campus. And this year didn't go anywhere near that at all. And there was and it's 2 loops. So there's hills at basically mile 7 and then at mile 14. You're kind of stuck right in these hills. And it was a lot harder than it was last year. Oh, man. I mean, sometimes hills kind of mix it up a little bit, though, and kind of give it a little bit of a challenge. And flat races are fun when they're short, in my opinion, but when it's like a long marathon, sometimes you want a little differentiation. Definitely. Yeah. So tell my viewers and listeners a little bit about you. Where did you come from, and how did you get into running? So I actually grew up in New Mexico. So I grew up on the Laguna Indian Reservation, which is about an hour west of Albuquerque, and went to school out there. I ran 1 year of cross country in junior high and just felt things out throughout high school. So I played football 1 year. Played basketball my senior year, but that was kind of about really all I did. I went to college at the University of New Mexico. I graduated from there in 2010 and kind of just bounced around a lot in Albuquerque. And then my dad moved down here in around 2013. I'm in Andrews, by the way, Andrews, Texas. So my dad moved down here when my mom passed away, and he had been doing construction and remodel work. And in 2018, I was kind of going through a pretty rough patch, moved down here with him and got into that. In 2019, I met she's now my wife, and talked to her about what to do. I had my degree, I wasn't really using it. So I got my teaching certification. So I started teaching at the middle school here in Andrews, 6th grade math around that time. My wife had always been a runner, and I decided to get into it, follow her lead. And, at first it was trying to just get moving. It was tough. I had been a smoker for a while, and that kind of had to go out the window once I started running. And so that was definitely a change. But, I got into just kind of running with her and really trying to set little goals for myself
I'm going to finish a mile before the song is over, and kind of putting these little challenges for myself out there. Fall of 2021, I just kind of talked to her and decided, hey, I think I want to try running a marathon. And she's like, I'll support you in whatever you need to do. And you know, I kind of went online and found, you see all these training plans and things like that. So I found one that kind of worked with my schedule. And I signed up for the Urban Ultra Series in Dallas. So they do in January, they do a marathon. And what I didn't know about it is that it wasn't flat, but it's pretty much 8 loops.
Oh, wow.
And it was terrible. And so that was my first experience into marathoning. And, I had thought I had prepared. I followed this plan pretty much to a T. I ended up finishing that one in 4:36:31. I wrote all my times down so it made it easier for me. But so 4 hours, 36 minutes. And, I was stopping at the aid stations and grabbing handfuls of M&Ms or bags of chips and just trying to survive. That was tough. And so kind of from there, it was moving forward from that, it was really, I have to do better than that. Like I had gone into that with a goal of at least 3:30, and I was an hour over my time. So it was kind of, I needed a redemption arc basically.
Right.
And so I signed up for the marathon to marathon that year in the fall of 2022. And for anybody listening or watching, if you have not listened to that race, it is a mental race more than it is physically. I know
For
you've
sure.
ran it, and
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah, I ran it. It was my second marathon that I've ever done. I did it back in 2023. And when I signed up for it, I was like, oh, well, it's just flat. I mean, it's just a straight line, like a small, like mile 22. It should be fine. But for me, it was like, I'm in no man's land out here. And then once that sun comes up over that horizon, it's like there's no getting away from it. There's no hiding from that.
No, there's not. You're just out there, and it's I from other people I've talked to, other runners here or in Midland, they're like, because I did that one in 2023 also, and they're like, I can't believe you did that race twice. Like it's just one of those ones where you experience it once and you're like, yeah, I'm good without running that one again. But I really just wanted to try it for another fall marathon. But that one I ran in 2022, I ended up running a 3:15. And
It's a huge.
it was one of those moments where it was like, okay, I had actually taken my training and modified it to what fit me. And I had gone through more so looking for a plan and more so just looking at research and what we've worked for other people or just what has research driven to help people run, and kind of built my own plan around it. And that was a big thing. And so hitting that 3:15 time, it kind of sparked my interest of, well, what was my qualifying time for Boston? What was it for my age group? And it was 3:05. I had talked to my wife and I said, I think I can do it if I just
Yeah.
continue working and making adjustments to what I'm doing. Following that, I had signed up for the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon. And that was my third marathon, that marathon's great. It's not as big as some of the majors, but the crowd there is electric. It's the course, there's support in the whole course, and it's just so fun to run that. My pastor at church, when I had told him about it, he's from Oklahoma, so he's like, "Yeah, it's so great. You gotta experience it." And so I did that and ended up running a 2:53 and got 19th overall. So that qualified me for Boston. And then whenever the window opened in September, I signed up for Boston and got to do that in 2024. And then in that fall race, I wanted a race for the fall. And that was when I did marathon to marathon again. And that was one where I went out maybe a little hotter than I had anticipated to go, but I held on till about 17. And,
Mhm.
and then this other guy I know that just went past me. And I was like, all right, okay, I'll just finish. That'll be good.
Yeah, like I was saying in that race, it feels easy at the beginning because it is so flat and downhill.
Right.
And I think my 8th mile when I did it in 2023 was like a 750 something. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I know that's too fast, but I'm feeling good. Like, let's go. And then like mile 15, I was like, I'm better than that.
You really think like, oh, I can bank all this time and then take it easy a little later. But, it's like you said, as soon as that sun comes up, it just starts kind of baking you slowly as you get through
Yes,
the
it's
course. And
yeah, it's like the West Texas desert is a pretty place to be and to see, but
like,
it does have its challenges for sure.
oh, yeah. And that's how it is training here in Angeles. There's not hills. I go and if I need to do hill work, I'll go in our football stadium. That gets me a little bit built. I kind of see it as my hill training is running in this wind that we have 80% of
Mhm.
the time.
And I'm curious, where is Andrews in Texas? Is
Uh,
that kind
it's
of
it's real West Texas, so we're about an hour from New Mexico, but we're also about 30 minutes from Odessa Midland area, north of Odessa
gotcha?
Midland, and hour and a half south of Lubbock,
Yeah,
middle of
so that is
nowhere.
pretty flat.
There's
Um,
nothing, just wind and dirt.
I imagine.
So you get stuck out in that, and you're coming home just using 30 Q-tips to get the dust out of your ears.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, so you said you got in a marathon, you were having a hard time emotionally, and my
Right.
mom is actually currently going through some stuff with cancer, and it's pretty emotional. And for me, running has been such a big like I don't want to say therapy because I think therapy is still important, but it definitely is a big help. That movement is medicine kind of situation. Would you agree? And is that kind of what drove you to keep running?
Yeah, I think that people underestimate the power that movement has emotionally in your wellness overall. There's things that make you feel good that don't hurt as much as running. If we think about it that way, running is hard. The cool thing about it is that when I tell some of my athletes, well, it's going to suck and it's going to hurt. But when you get done with it, you're going to be happy that you did it. And that's what it's like as far as the emotional support that running provides. Also, they're doing hard things and you're overcoming hard things. If you can overcome a bunch of little things like a track workout or a hill workout, if you can overcome these difficult things physically, your mind kind of heals itself.
Yeah.
I tell people that, and vice versa. If you can get your mind to go in the middle of a race, if you can get your mind to go, your body's gonna follow. So it kind of works both ways in a circle.
Yeah. I was talking to my coach one time and I was like, I feel like running sometimes is a bit more mental than it is physical. And she was like, I would say it's 90%
Yeah.
mental and 10% physical. And she was like,
Oh
physical, all
yeah.
you're doing is one step at a time. Mental, I mean, you got to tell yourself you can do this and it's okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then you'd said you were a smoker and you also played basketball in college. Is that what you said?
I played basketball in high school. I really didn't do anything in college. I
Yeah.
just kind of took my classes and hung out.
Yeah. So you kind of jumped into running kind of head first and didn't have a big background in it, it sounds like. Then now you go from running your first marathon in 4:30 to winning races and getting top results. How did you get to that point so fast? What is your training like? And where are some little wins that you found and tips that you could share?
So the biggest thing for me is discipline and consistency. That's what I tell our athletes is that putting in the work when you don't want to put in the work is going to have the biggest payoff. Last year, all of 2024, I decided I was going to run every day, no matter what. And I made it all through the year, even if it was just a mile or 2 miles, and made it through the year. And I made it to about August of this year when I finally had to like mentally break myself through that cycle of, if I miss it, I'm going to beat myself up over it. But giving yourself grace when the workout doesn't go as planned. I tell athletes all the time, even if you don't hit your paces, if you don't hit your mileage, the work is still happening. I may have a tempo run planned and I can maybe only get in just the mileage, and being able to accept that I'm still doing something positive will still get me to the next step. Trial and error for me, you know, when I first got into it, I used to think every run has to be at roll space, and I'd go out and do it. And, I think that's what kind of the mentality I had going into my first marathon is that I have to hit these pulses on every single run. Researched and developed my own training plan. That's when I realized the importance of recovery mileage and sprinkling in tempo or speed work or repeats. All of that stuff plays a factor, but only if it all works together.
Yeah.
My biggest advice for people wanting to get into this and to make improvements is any mental defeat that you hang on to is going to manifest itself physically. Then it's so huge to keep a positive mindset because we don't realize how big of an impact our brain can have on our bodies when we're trying to push it to the limit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what you talked about with not every run has to be race pace, and not every speed workout has to be exceeding the paces of the workouts that you've prescribed. I've had some times, especially like this last few months, where I'm like, oh, I got to run at 6:30 paces for this many meters. I'm like, I can do better than that. And so I would go out and do like a 6:05, a
Mhm.
5:59 or something. And then the next day I have an easy run and I could barely get through the easy runs. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, well, you gassed yourself on
Yeah.
you changed the workout yesterday.
Yeah. You go out trying to be a hero and it's going to bite you later.
Yeah. Anytime that you try to be a hero in training, you're just
Oh,
being a
yeah.
villain to yourself.
Right.
um,
Exactly. And that's what, because I'm an assistant coach at the high school, but the middle schoolers come up and do it. And you see them going out in the warm up and we'll laugh about it. The result, they're trying to win the warm up. And
yeah.
yeah, you got to realize that that's not going to help you later, but they learn once they get to high school. And once they get through the season, more like, okay, now I realize what I got to do.
Yeah, for sure. It's humbling, but when you do learn it and then you do it, you're like, oh, okay.
It's a
Um,
lot easier to accept.
exactly. And you said you're an assistant coach at the high school. So do you coach cross country or track or both?
So I actually coach cross country, boys soccer, and track. I was cross country and soccer last year, and then they added track on this year. So I'll be the distance coach for the track team.
I started coaching my wife's high school track team last year. And getting into it, I was like, man, I've never coached anyone in my life. I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know how to teach kids. You know what I mean? Once I got in there and I showed them that I'm on your side, I'm your friend, and like, I'm trying to help you do something that you want to do, and they realize that, they kind of latch on and they're okay with doing what you tell them to.
Right. And that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing, is getting them to buy your mindset and knowing that you're doing what's best for them. That's the most difficult part. The head coach and I would talk and we'd say, oh, we want to do this Pavo training, which is basically the same thing we're doing, but everything's called something different. And so it kind of puts that fear into the kids of, I don't want to do that. That's a critical threshold run, or that's this. And it's like, well, what if we just call it a tempo run? And then it's like, oh, yeah, we can do a tempo run. And just finding these little cheat codes that you can get the kids to be
Yes.
like, hey, you just need to do this. And, they figure out that it works. The nice thing about some of the workouts that we do is that I'll do it to test it out. So being a runner myself, I can be like, oh, this was real hard or this was real fun. And, I saw this benefit from it. So I get to be the guinea pig for the team, which is fun and sometimes not fun, but it works out when the kids see like, oh, I guess he's doing it too. So maybe it's not that bad.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Um, and yeah, you kind of touched on it, but like coaching kids and coaching other people, you had the experience of self-coaching yourself in the marathon. Do you feel like what you've learned in your time in the marathon has helped your coaching? And then the other way, do you feel like coaching the kids and like seeing them grow has helped your own running as well?
Oh yeah. I think for the first part of that question, learning what I learned to coach myself has definitely been able to translate to what the kids are doing. I once in a while I do have to catch myself from, being like, hey, we're gonna do this workout and realizing, well, that workout would be better if you're trying to run a half or if you're trying to run a 10K, and these kids are running 5K in 2 miles, with 4A, so their boys run 5K, girls run 2 mile. But basically just kind of toning it down a bit and realizing, hey, they don't run 70, 80 miles a week. Like we're not trying
Yeah.
to push the mileage up that high. Um,
Yeah.
and then on the other side, just seeing the small victories that these kids had is definitely rewarding, but also motivating to be happy with those small victories. These kids are hitting 2-minute PRs, and JV runners are hitting 2-minute PRs, or our varsity runners are closing the gap. Seeing these victories and seeing their excitement about it definitely is motivating for me to kind of push myself to celebrate those small victories. One of the things I tell the kids is that the race isn't the work. The race is a celebration of all the work that you've put in, because in essence, it's just a public display of where you come from based on what you've
Yeah.
done in the past.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I totally agree. Like there was a race last year where we showed up. It was the second race of the season. We're kind of a small private school, and we were at a school at a meet where there was a lot of public schools and a couple of higher rated schools. One of the schools kind of like talked down to us a little bit. You know what I mean? We got finished, and I looked at my kids. I was like, guys, if we can just beat that team, like I would be so excited. And I think we actually did. I know everyone got their PRs by like long shots, and I was running around the track with them, like let's go. And the next day, I had to do a long run. It was probably one of the best long runs of my life because my kids
Yeah.
had done such good work, and I was like, man,
Yeah.
if they can come out here on someone else's track and do this, like I got, like this long run is no big deal. So like
Yeah.
it's definitely motivating when you get to see those kids you're coaching hit those big breakthroughs. So
So cool.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a blast. And, in cross country meets, they're so exhausting as a coach because you're running from, well, I'm going to talk to them at the start, and then I got to run to the mile mark, and then you got to run back to the, if it's a second loop, and then you're making your way around these courses, and some of them you're sprinting up these hills just to get them and be like, this is your time right now. This is where you got to kick it in. You get done, and everybody's just in a good mood. We have some really good kids this year who, even if they didn't do well themselves, they've taken on this leadership role to be there for the rest of the team. And it's been really cool to have that dynamic on the team. But yeah, it's just moving that much and get home at the end of the day after a meet and just kind of reflect on it and say, like, we may not have got the victory, but we definitely got the win.
Yeah. That's awesome. And now going back to your running, so you qualified for Boston and you've run Boston. Have you run it once or twice now?
I ran Boston once in 2024.
That's
That was a blast. Such a fun race, being able to start to finish. There's people on the sides, and I ran it with music on, but you get to a point where you turn it down so you can hear the crowd. There's kids on the side wanting high fives, and as a teacher, it's cool to see like the excitement that these kids have for running. Hopefully, it kind of grows from there. It's just crazy experience.
yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I do know what I know most about Boston is it starts all downhill and
Mhm.
basically ends all uphill.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. It's it's real easy to go out too fast. That downhill at the beginning, and there's a I think there's a lot of legend behind the hills in Boston just because of the stories that we hear. But they weren't as bad as they were built up to be. Yeah, it was, there's a lot, and it's starting at like mile 17 to about 22. You're just kind of rolling through these hills, and then Heartbreak is it's there was a few people on the side, but it wasn't as intense as I saw it. The counselors and people there were tracking me on the app, and my wife was in Boston with me, and they were texting her like, "What's happening? His pace is slowed down." And like, no, it was right when I hit the hills, and it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna power up these hills, but she was like, "Don't worry, it's fine."
Mm,
That was pretty funny. That was cool.
yeah. Every year when I follow like my friends or people who I know who are running it, I'll look at their splits at the end and it's like at mile 22 or whatever Heartbreak Hill
Yeah,
is, they'll hit like 6:45, 6:48, 6:51, 7:20, 6 like
it's so funny.
yeah, and I'm like every time like there's Heartbreak Hill.
Yeah.
For you in Texas, of all you've run a lot of marathons in Texas. Which ones have you done, and what would you say is A, the most challenging, and B, your favorite?
So I've done two marathon to marathons and two Lubbock marathons. As far as the most challenging, I would say it would have to be marathon to marathon. And that's more of the mental aspect of that race is what makes it challenging. Physically, it's not that bad. There is that mile 21 to 22 is that long uphill, and that's a little tough that far into the race, but that's a mental game. I remember in 23, when I hit mile 18, I called my wife on my headphones and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm struggling hard. And she just kind of talked me through it. Well, that was a tough thing mentally. And, I think with races where there's more spectators, that doesn't play in as much, but it's such a lonely race just being out on the highway. And Lubbock is real fun. I enjoyed it more this year than I did last year. The course was a lot harder this year. What I liked about it is that, you're making that it's two loops. So you're running two loops of the course. But, when I'm coming out on my second loop, I was able to just, kind of high five people and encourage people that are making their way through. And you really see a lot of the grit and determination that the other runners are pushing through and, you know, really working to do something hard. And
Yeah,
it's real cool to see. And that's what I liked about Lubbock. I think out of those two, I think that's the best part about it is being able to just offer some encouragement, but also just see the resilience of people that are out there and are working.
yeah. And real quick, going back to marathon, at the end of the race, they always have the barbecue at the end. And I'm curious, can you ever eat the barbecue at that race at the end, or like is your stomach kind of like I can't do it?
It's hard, after you're taking 6 gels and water, like you can't really stomach anything. The last year at the end of the Lubbock race, they give you a little ticket for free beer. And I had gotten it last year at the end of the race, and I had it hung out a little bit at the race. I went to Whataburger. My favorite food after a meal is cheeseburger. So
Yeah,
wherever I can get a pretty decent cheeseburger, that's where I'm gonna go. And I had to drive back to Andrews after the race, so I stopped at Whataburger and I got about maybe a third of the way through it, and was, you know, it's so hard to eat right
yeah.
afterwards, especially if you've really pushed it. And this year I had ran Chicago 2 weeks before the Lubbock Marathon. I don't know why I decided to do that. I think part of it was ego. I wanted to defend my title from last year at Lubbock,
Yeah, and you did.
but my body's still, I feel like I'm still recovering. I'm getting in some runs and some speed work in, but there's still a few kinks in my joints that are,
Yeah.
that are lingering.
Yeah, marathon fatigue is very real. At my last marathon, after I waited a week after the race to run again, And then I felt pretty good. I was like feeling all right, moving around, and I ran a mile slow. I was like, "No, I'll take it easy." But my like knees, backs, hip, like everything hurt. I was like, "Oh my gosh, takes a lot to recover from."
What I've learned over time is that as much as it's going to suck the next day, you need to get out and run.
I
Because
do
if your entire body just is like, okay, I guess we're just going to stay tense now. But that's made a big difference is getting out and doing it the next day, even if it's just a couple miles. It
yeah,
makes a huge difference in recovery.
for sure. And then I've been following you on Instagram for I think a couple of years now, and I just kind of like all of the videos that you post and the funny little like with the bat and the
Yeah.
Strava. Why do you like to share that kind of stuff? Why do you like to share your running? Do you hope it kind of inspires people, or what's your why of sharing?
So I really want people to see that there is joy in running. You know, if you play any other sports, running's the punishment.
Yeah,
No, that's the thing. They talk to kids. It's like, "Oh, I don't like running. I don't want to run." I want people to see that it can be fun. That you can feel good afterwards, even if it doesn't feel good during. I just hope that I can get some people to get out and run or just move. There's so much benefit physically and mentally to exercise and being able to move your body, but it's okay to have fun and do that. That's a lot what I hope. So sharing that stuff sparks conversation. A bunch of the students and athletes at the high school see it and they'll talk to me the next day. Even just having the icebreaker of talking to the kids about it and, telling them like, yeah, it's fun. Running is fun. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be something that you hate doing. And that's just, I think it's always a conversation starter, and hopefully the conversation goes towards getting some people out and everything.
yeah, that's awesome. And then my next question is, I'm fixing to have to go because I go pick up my wife.
Oh,
But
awesome.
yeah, I wish we could talk forever because I mean, like,
Yeah,
I love talking running. So,
yeah,
um,
me too.
but for you, why do you still run? What is kind of your why, I guess, your motivator? And how has that kept you going?
So my biggest thing is I have two daughters who are juniors, and I have a son who is 3. If I can be an example of managing my time and doing hard things and pushing myself to do better and grow as a person and as an athlete, then that's the kind of example I'm going to set for my kids. And same thing as with the kids that I coach and the kids that I teach. I'm not afraid to talk to them about it. And if they can see that I'm doing this, you know, that they can do it at 16, 17, 18. And that's just the biggest thing that keeps me going. It's just being healthy, obviously, to be here as long as they can and be able to move it for as long as they can. But just setting an example of perseverance and growth, I think, is the key thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Growing up, she was always a big runner, would run half marathons, marathons. She did Boston twice, but that was when I was like a toddler. So, like,
Yeah,
I don't remember it, but she did that. And then she did big bicycle races and was a competitive tennis player for a long time. And she was always it still is a very active, mobile person. And as someone who was growing up, that was always very inspiring to see, like, she can do it. So, like, I got to be able to
yeah,
do it. She's running 26 miles. My cross country team is asking me to run too. Like, this is
yeah.
like, I can do. So, that's great to have parents who are that example. So keep doing that because I know your kids
Thank you.
probably appreciate it so much. And my last question is, if you could give everybody a reason to go for a run today, what would you tell them?
I would say that do something hard today because you're going to feel better for it later. The work today isn't for yourself tomorrow, it's for yourself tomorrow.
Yeah. Then if it doesn't feel good during,
Yeah.
you'll feel much better that you did it. And then you'll be a little bit better tomorrow
Yeah.
because that's how consistency works.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you so much, Brian, for coming on
Yeah.
today. I'll keep following your running journey, and hopefully, I can have you back on the podcast again at some point if you'd be willing. I've loved this
Oh yeah,
conversation.
for sure. Just let me know.
Awesome. Well, thank you
All
so
right.
much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Okay. Bye bye.
All right. Well, that was episode 9 of the Through Their Stride podcast with Brian Vogt. Thank y'all so much for listening and for following. It's been a really interesting journey getting this podcast off the ground. I got to say, big thanks to Christian Warwick with the Marathon podcast. I had a good conversation with him a couple of days ago, and he gave me some good pointers about how to edit this podcast better and record it better. And that's been going super well. And yeah, I mean, just really nice guy, really helpful tips. Also gave me the tip to start my own Instagram for the podcast, and that has already been giving me more listeners. So really big thanks to him on his help with that. All right, well, without further ado, well, I will see you guys next time, hopefully next weekend for episode 10 of the podcast. See you next week.